2, 3, 4. Come on. There we go. All right. All right. Welcome, everybody, on the live and the replay. We got a new, beloved, beautiful sister who is I've never met before, and we're all going to get to know her in real time, spontaneously. But right now, I'm going to play our intro and allow people time to come in. We'll be back in a minute and 19 seconds. How's it going, everybody? We got Debbie Solaris is in the house. She came recommended from our beautiful, beloved sister, Marianne Savino, I believe. Isn't that right?
That's right, yeah.
I'm hoping I got that right. I can't remember anything. I can barely even function. And I don't mind saying that on the air, you know, because I think this is prevalent. It has to be, you know, just talking to that beautiful couple before, Scarlett and Kurt. I mean, you know, it's like, all the stuff that we've pulled down, you know, each one of us in our own way, and the sacred wisdoms, the modalities, the channelings, and it's like all that stuff is moving so fast now. You know, it's moving so fast, and then there's a part of it where we're just being pushed into it's all being pushed into the body, you know, and all the things that means, which there is a I don't want to say a burden in a bad way, but there's a pressure on the body and all the layers of the body that's being brought front and center. And I guess it's the universe's way of forcing us, or at least by force or flow, putting us into a situation where we've got to be totally human with all this information we've been getting. You know, I don't know. That's how I would put it on this discombobulated morning. How are you doing? How's it going in your world? How's it going on your end of the apocalypse, the Great Unveiling?
Yeah, it's actually hasn't been bad for me. I mean, I've actually, even with the COVID, the COVID lockdowns, it seems like I've been busier than ever. Yeah. So I think a lot of people are awakening right now. A lot of people are looking for answers to their questions. Yeah. So they're coming to people like you and me, you know, to get answers.
Yeah. Yeah. I was telling you before the show that, and actually had just messaged a friend of mine who was telling me what's happening with her, what she's feeling. And I've never bought into the solar flash, and I still don't. The event, you know, that people have predicted so many times, that, you know, and the dates have come and gone. But with the intel that enough people have put out this year, which, you know, can be stated a lot of ways, you know, for instance, people like Morgan and others who said, you know, that the masculine and feminine energies conceived in March, and then there's been phases throughout the pregnancy that will be birthed on or around the solstice in December. I just feel this like never before, like this wave that's developing, and it almost makes me want to consider that there could be a moment where the universe blinks its eye at us and everybody has a simultaneous expansion in consciousness that everybody acknowledges. I guess anything's possible, I guess anything's possible, but it just seems like the whole energy's coming down, the ascension as a whole, the what you're talking about, people waking up, is all coming to a central point that is centered on our human consciousness.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, anything's possible. It could happen. I guess. Absolutely. So, yeah, let me try to get some traction here because I'm struggling today. It's not a bad thing either. It's just like, it's a newness. It's like maybe the toughest thing that we're going to be faced with, if we can put it that way, is getting used to our natural nature and how things were before we entered the realm, and how things will be once we get to that certain point. But I know, just based on your energy, that you have been swimming in this consciousness that we might call starseed or light worker or whatever for quite some time. Did you have a reawakening experience, or did you have this since you were born and kind of held on to it the whole time?
Actually, I'm relatively a newcomer to this whole awakening, ascension thing, which is, I think, kind of surprising for when people hear that from me. But I think my awakening kind of started after 2007. Before that, I was really like unawakened. I was just an ordinary person, just working a job. I'm a military veteran, and I worked as an environmental specialist for a lot of years, and I don't know, it was just I just wasn't really conscious of anything beyond our physical reality until I went through a sudden death of a family member. My father had passed away in 2007, and I was asking a lot of questions. And I think my actual awakening actually happened in 2012 when I had a out-of-body experience where I was on board an Arcturian starship. And
oh, wow.
And that was like a sudden awakening. It was like,
now, do you have full recall of that experience?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I can remember it like it happened yesterday. It was,
wow.
Yeah. And I apologize to everybody. My camera is a little fuzzy on my computer.
Well, we didn't know if you were like going to ascend before our eyes. You look like you're going kind of light, but that's
I know. It seems kind of like,
no, it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, it's like a weird, fuzzy, but kind of cool energy at the same time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So like you said earlier, there's a lot of people waking up, and that's one of the reasons, I think one of the objectives of what we do at Soulogy is to let everybody know that they're not alone and they're not crazy. Because I'm sure when you went up to the Arcturian starship that you must have questioned yourself a little bit when you came out of it, from time to time, as we all have.
It for years. It took
right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and that's happening to a lot of people. So a lot of these stories and experiences being conveyed, I believe, carry a lot of code, and can, it can just be one show or one conversation that lets somebody know, hey, I'm not the only one. So in regard to that, like, what happened now, did you have like, was it because I've had both, like the near death and the out of body, where there wasn't like a threat of physical death. Was it brought on by a near death, or was it you just had an experience where you just popped out?
It was kind of a spontaneous out-of-body experience. I don't know if I would call it spontaneous, because I did send out a massive prayer to the universe, about 2 weeks before I had that experience, where I was praying for planet Earth. I felt like planet Earth needed divine assistance, because everything was just kind of falling apart. And this was in 2012. So we were, facing an important election during that year. There was the end of the Mayan calendar. There was a lot going on. So, and then there was a lot going on with me personally, because, my partner and I, we decided, we were going to move in together, and he lived in Denver. I lived in Colorado Springs. So we were going to buy a place together halfway in the halfway point, which is Castle Rock. Castle Rock is a very beautiful suburban area just south of Denver. It's a phenomenal place to live, but it was a lot going on, and I was worried. I was worried about the state of the planet, and so I had sent out just this very earnest, heart-filled prayer, I guess if you want to call it that, this prayer out to the universe that, please help planet Earth. We need assistance. And I was praying that all night. I mean, it was one of those sleepless nights where I just was holding, that intention in my heart. Of course, the next day, nothing happened. I was just kind of like, oh, well, I don't know if anybody heard my silly prayer, but, we'll move on with life. And then this was in May of 2012. In June 2012, I think it was like the first week of June, I had minor back surgery. It was laser surgery. And then I went to bed one night. This was like, I think a few days after the surgery. And when I came back to consciousness, I was in a totally different reality. It was just completely not anything I've seen before. And it wasn't a dream. You know how you can tell when you're in a dream where everything's kind of fuzzy, kind of like me right now, but but everything's kind of fuzzy, and it doesn't seem very clear. Even if you have a lucid dream, sometimes it seems like that, but this was like crystal clear. It was like a hyper reality. That's the only way I can think of to describe it. And I knew I was on board some sort of craft. The colors were very brilliant. It didn't look metallic though. It was very like organic and light. It felt like it was made of light or some sort of unknown materials I haven't seen before. But yeah, it was crazy. But I knew I was in some sort of different consciousness, and the ship seemed like it was sentient, or it had like a soul of its own,
like organic.
Very organic, because it kept leading me towards this room, and so I just kind of followed it along to this space, and within this space or this room there were 4 or 5 extraterrestrial beings, and I knew they were extraterrestrial. I've never seen beings like that before in my life. I mean, not even in popular ufology. Never seen anything like that. And I was just kind of, I think, just taking in the surroundings, and I was thinking to myself, why am I here? What is this? Where am I at? And as I was, even before I was finished thinking the thoughts that were in my head, these beings were responding to me in telepathy. Yeah. So they already knew what I was thinking, even before I opened my mouth. So I asked them, who are you? Where am I? Why am I here? And they told me that they were Arcturians from Arcturus, that I'm on board an Arcturian starship, and that I was in something called the orientation room, and that I was there because they had heard my prayer and they were very impressed with my prayer. Like, wow. I was like, wow, you actually heard my prayer? Wow. It's like, really?
That's really something to consider, because I think we've all had those moments, specifically when they are collective appeals, as opposed to, hey, can you help me here? But yeah, so they heard the prayer. Mm-hmm. And it just makes me wonder how many others did. You know what I mean?
No, I think because they're of higher consciousness, or they're in the higher dimension, I think, I think as Earth humans, we kind of downgrade like our impact out into the universe. That
I agree.
Like, hey, I'm, who am I, or what kind of difference can I make? And it's all really frequency. It's all
Yeah.
frequency. And
Yeah.
even Tesla talks about this. Everything is based on frequency. So I was sending out this love frequency through my prayer, and I guess somebody in the universe, responded to it.
Do you remember? Yeah, and I get what you're saying too about
Yeah.
the human part too, because I love this meme. I've seen it for years, and I share it every year when it comes back. It's this guy with his arms in the air, and he says, "Who am I that God would know my name?" It's like I don't know why that's always struck with me. But do you remember what was said? Do you remember the information you were given at all?
Oh, I was there for a while. I mean, because I was asking so many questions, and they had me in some sort of an orientation room where there was a big hologram. And as they were explaining things to me, they were using the hologram to illustrate like what they were telling me. So like they told me they were from the Bodas constellation, and they showed me a star map with Bodas, and I was like, oh wow, that's really something. And then they were showing me like different images. Like I was asking them about religion, I was asking them about politics on Earth. And the one thing they were constantly telling me was that everything on 3D Earth is an illusion.
Yeah.
And I was like, what do you mean by illusion? It seems pretty real. I mean, it's, and they didn't quite explain it. I don't know if they were trying to explain it to me and I didn't understand, or I didn't, but they said that like 5 times, like it's an illusion, it's an illusion. And I was like, okay. And the one thing I did ask them was, why me? I'm just an ordinary human. I'm not anything special. I don't have any special abilities. And they told me that I was part of their family. And
that was my next question.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So they told me, hey, you're part of our family. And I said, really? I was shocked. That was probably the most shocking thing that they told me. And they told me that they had been watching me and my Earth family for quite a while, for generations, and that I have a genetic connection with them as well. Because they told me about my family's from Italy originally, and they said that a long time ago they sent out a scout ship to Earth. It crash landed in central Italy. All of the Arcturian scientists on board that craft survived, and that they ended up, I think because they were there anyway, they thought, why don't we try an experiment? Why don't we try to create a civilization on Earth that's more spiritual than the civilizations that was currently there? So my understanding is that the Etruscan civilization was founded by Arcturians.
Wow.
That was something I knew that my family had connections to the Etruscans through my father's side of the family, because we're from that region, and there's been Etruscan pottery that's been passed down for generations that my family currently has. But I never realized there was an extraterrestrial connection to that race of people, or that that civilization. So
the detail, like somebody conveys or recalls and restates something like that and has that kind of detail, it's pretty hard to refute it. I mean, it's not like, I mean, that like, why would they say some of that stuff? And then the other thing this brings up too, I remember years ago, like, would have been like 3 or 4 years into my reawakening. I was getting a lot of downloads about the galactic wars for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And the Earth itself and its evolution, formation, the whole 9 yards. And one of the things, and I saw this in other people's writings as well. I saw, you know how that works. You'll get something, then then all of a sudden it appears in front of you and gives you some validation. But it had to do with the seeding of the Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And it had to do with how there were so many different species behind the ethnicities and the regional cultural groups around the Earth. if you look deeper, like, if you look in the Nordic region, Scandinavia and such, I mean, so they all had like these attributes and characteristics, and how that when this series of incarnations was over, I guess the ascension, once post ascension or whatever, that when a soul left the earth realm, that because of their universal seeding, because we're all, like, if you're coming from Arcturian, let's say I'm coming from Syrian or whatever the case is,
exactly.
and we have a connection like this right now. There's code going back and forth. So I'm picking up what you have, you're picking up what I have, but that when our incarnations are over, we would literally be like universal healers. We would be able to go into any quadrant of the multiverses because of the fact that we had come here and we had picked up all the code, be it elemental and galactic, angelic, whatever they are that we know and don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I've heard quite a few stories in regard to the Arcturians, the Andromedans, obviously the Pleiadians, Syrians, but the Arcturians seem to be as well represented in the stories I've come across and the experiences I've had as any other star family.
Yeah, no, I think we weren't as, as speaking we as, Arcturian star family, but we weren't as involved with the Human Genome Project as the Syrians and the Pleiadians were. But my understanding is that there were 22 different star races that contributed to the genetics of planet Earth, so all of us, I think the biggest section is Syrian. I think we all carry Syrian genetics. That's my understanding from going into the Akashic Records. But so all of us here on planet Earth, we have some percentage of Syrian DNA. But then we have also some Pleiadian or some Arcturian or Andromedan. It's all kind of like a big soup, a mix of genetics. But I think as souls, what happens is that, like, for instance, me as a soul, I might decide, hey, I want to incarnate on Earth. I have to find family groups that carry at least some percentage of Arcturian DNA. So there has to be like a physical DNA marker for my soul to be able to connect with that physical body. Okay, so what I find usually when I do Akashic readings is that people with Syrian souls or, Syrian-based souls usually have an easier time incarnating on Earth than somebody that's Andromedan or Arcturian, because, but yeah, it's something I see often in the records, and it's really interesting, but yeah, going back to the whole, extraterrestrial contact experience I had. I did ask about future Earth because I was very concerned. I was very concerned about the direction Earth was going to. And the Arcturians showed me this prototype or this vision of future Earth that was absolutely mesmerizing. It was so outstanding that I started to cry because it was just amazing, the potential that is there for Earth. And basically what they showed me was smaller communities, houses that were integrated into the environment. So we no longer lived in square houses like we do today.
It's almost like the organic spaceship.
Exactly. Yeah. And there was no roadways. There was no cars. There was some recreational vehicles, but you didn't see massive amount of cars because people knew how to teleport themselves.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Unless they wanted to go four-wheeling or motocrossing.
Yeah. There was some recreational vehicles.
That's what I mean, yeah.
For people to have fun. I think we still like to, drive in our little, things, but yeah, and all the houses had its own free energy device. All the houses had its own greenhouse. So we were sovereign and independent from any centralized energy system.
Yeah. Yeah, even some of the stuff that I read, I used to read a lot, test. Uh, some of the stuff that I read in regard to the more human perspective, though,
Yeah.
um, in terms of where we're headed. Like I remember reading a book in the 90s. It was written by an ex-CIA
Hmm.
employee who studied civilizations, and he was pretty, well respected. And he talked about how how that when as we got down the road, everything would become decentralized and it would be like local communities, local government, as opposed to, what everybody's, I guess, big fear is the new world order or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Uh, One of the things too that there's a couple things that you bring to the table that I think would be helpful to people that are just waking up, and even others.
Yeah.
And one of those would be your experience in the Akashic Records. There's a lot of different. There's been a lot of different people that I've talked to about that on this show, and privately, that incorporated into their practitionership.
Hmm.
I've heard different explanations. And then the other thing I think would be useful too, especially to people that are quote unquote waking up,
Hmm.
is that a lot of times, really maybe all the time, when there is an awakening or a reawakening, that certain sacred wisdom downloads come, direction and guidance come, to move into, let's just say, a non-traditional vocation such as energy practitioner.
Yeah.
So, like in regard to your journey, how did that happen? I mean, you had the event with the Arcturians. Obviously, there was a few years that led up to that as well.
Yeah.
When did you start to get information about becoming an energy practitioner, your purposes, your mission,
Hmm.
and what's it like to swim in the Akashic when you're Debbie?
Oh no, those are great questions, and I after my experience, I had actually two experiences in 2012, one in June and one in December of that year. The second one was more with the Pleiadians. So apparently I have some Pleiadian guides too. Uh, but after that happened, I spent, I think, a few years just trying to figure out what the heck happened to me. Like why did I have that experience? And once you go into, it's kind of like an NDE. Once you have an extraterrestrial contact experience, um, when you come back to 3D Earth, you feel very depressed. You feel like, why am I back here in this reality? Why is it so? Why couldn't I just stay there? I knew that I had a purpose here, and that's why I was back. But I was still driving, commuting to work every day, and every day I was commuting to work in the morning. I was crying because I wanted to be back on board the ship, but um, and I missed my new extraterrestrial friends. They seemed really cool, but I mean they're cool. I mean, it's like I mean, it's like you can't ask for better friends, right?
Mhm.
But then it's I think when I started coming into my gifts was soon afterwards. I
Yeah.
noticed that my extrasensory perception increased 100-fold. Like all of a sudden I was seeing auras around people. I was having interdimensional travels. I was seeing UFOs all the time. I mean, I was having some crazy experiences. Um, and I knew something had changed, so I knew that because I had those contact experiences that something had changed in me, and I was no longer just an ordinary 3D Earth human anymore, that I became a galactic representative.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so kind of around the time of, I think I started doing a lot of research, but on top of that, I was having massive downloads of information.
Yeah.
I was having,
It's funny too. I
yeah.
think too. Sometimes we because it is a little bit. There's a little bit of a complexity to it because you're getting information coming in,
Hmm.
and then at the human level, and this is where I was going with it. You're you do research. Like I remember getting stuff in the first few weeks, and every time I got something, I would go look it up.
Oh yeah, that's what I
And
do.
there would always be a certain level of congruence and I guess validation. And I would think to myself, oh, wait a minute, you're taking on these belief systems because you're researching. But I think the research is part of it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think the other thing that I would mention too, and I don't know if this was how it was for you, but there was almost like a what I want to say, like like it was on autopilot. Like in other words, you were taking to what you needed. And I can remember a couple of cases where, like I had a spirit guide come in, and I went on the internet and I immediately found this seance, like this obscure seance on an obscure website of these British people that pulled in this spirit guide, my spirit guide,
Oh, wow.
and had a conversation with them. And the conversation was almost the exact conversation I had with them.
Oh, wow.
And then later on, I went back to try to find it. I can never find it again.
No, that's great.
So there seems to be like a synchronicity or a flow when you have the intention from the download that you've received. You get some cooperation. Have you experienced that?
Yeah, I just noticed that I was getting massive downloads of galactic information. Like all of a sudden, it was like I knew all the star systems. I had never taken an astronomy class in my life.
Wow.
And all of a sudden, I knew all these star systems. I knew like this star and that star and where they were at and the history of them and, all this and that. And I was like, what the heck? And it's like, is this real? How do I know this? And then I was having downloads of galactic wars and downloads of information about different star people and their history. And so, of course, once you get that information in, as a human being, you do want to know, kind of at least maybe get some validation that what you're getting is real. Okay. So I did do a massive amount of research in those first few years after, my experiences. And then the other thing too was that I was picking up information about people all the time. I mean, it was like kind of random, like, oh, this person has had many lives in the Pleiades, or this person is Arcturian, or this person, they like griffins because there's a griffin on their family crest. And I was like, how do I know this? And it's like, it's like crazy. Or this person had Celtic background, it's like crazy stuff.
Now, would you say that information is coming? Well, would you say that was kind of a you were dipping into the Akashic without consciously going in there? It was just coming to you?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I think it sounds like now, because we've had 3 or 4 people already say that they've had sessions with you, which is not out of the ordinary on the show, but that they just, the fact that it came in, there's no coincidences. And I'm assuming that you utilize, that you go into the Akashic during your sessions.
Oh,
or maybe.
Yeah.
So is that how it happened, that it just kind of came in and then you started to work with it on a conscious level?
Yes, I didn't realize where the information was coming from at first. And as I was, I guess, taking spiritual classes and I was connecting with spiritual teachers, they were telling me, gosh, it sounds like you're getting information from the Akashic Records. I didn't even know what the Akashic Records were at first, and one of my teachers, one of my spiritual teachers, who's actually in Castle Rock here with me, she offered Akashic Records training. And I thought, well, since it sounds like I'm getting information from there, I might as well take this class, and it was 3 levels. So, you had to take, the first level, and then the third, second level and the third level. But it was kind of like I was a natural at it. I didn't have to try hard. It was like the information immediately was coming through. It was like even after level 1, I was already doing Akashic readings professionally. It was just like, it was so easy for me. And the Arcturians told me on board the ship that the reason why that is because I guess my particular star family has a connection with the Akashic Records.
Okay. Yeah.
They told me that I came from a long line of Arcturian ambassadors, scientists, and historians. I don't know. They told me a
Wow.
lot of stuff.
And like this always makes me inquisitive and intrigues me, because I just am that way, like I have a curious mind. So like when you go up to the ship in 2012, and as
Yeah.
you had more and more interactions, and I know at the end of the day everything's one,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but these aspects, like we've had aspects come into our bedroom. I had a couple of them enter my body, which I later realized I was embodying those aspects of me.
Mm-hmm.
But who were the other ones in the room? And who were the ones on the starship? I mean, is it like you're there and I'm here? And I know you and I are one and the same,
Mm-hmm.
but there's levels, right?
Yeah.
Do you see them as external or more internal?
I think they were higher aspects of myself.
Okay.
It felt like, I don't know, maybe this is going to sound crazy, but I felt like the ship was an extension of myself. The Arcturian beings were higher aspects of myself. And actually there was hundreds of extraterrestrial beings on board that ship. So, and I interacted with quite a few of them when I was on there, that of different star races. So it wasn't just Arcturians, but I felt like I was connected to all of them because, I was on board the ship, and it was like nobody questioned it. Nobody was like, "Who are you?" or "Why are you here?" You're great, little Earth human, So, yeah.
It reminds me of a couple of movies, and I can't remember exactly who they were. I think one of them had Rich Moranis in it. I think it might have been called Inner Space.
Yeah.
Where you're in a ship and you go into the body.
Mm-hmm.
And I often wonder too, because some of the experiences I've had, and I guess from a strictly human comprehension, with nothing else taken into account, we probably never could understand it, although that may be wrong.
Yeah.
But like, are we going into our innerverse, and these are these are aspects of ourselves?
Oh,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
And it's like and again, maybe that's why nobody questioned you, because everybody knew who you were, right?
No, they all knew who I was. It was like, and there was, the ship was huge. It was like city sized, and I wandered throughout the whole ship, and I think they all knew who I was. I think there was like, oh, finally, we get that aspect of ourselves,
Right.
of ourselves on board the ship. But it was because I had an interaction with a Pleiadian. Pleiadians are magnificent looking. I don't know if you guys have ever encountered Pleiadians, but Arcturians are magnificent looking. These beings are just like, when you encounter them, it's like your breath gets stuck in your throat because they're just so. Their frequency is so high, and
they're hot. It's kind of like my wife.
Yeah.
She's Pleiadian, I think.
Oh my God.
They're just sexy.
Just like you just want to like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm in the presence of these magnificent beings. But yeah, no, they're the Arcturians. It was hard to even look at them because their auras were so bright.
Yeah.
That I'd have to glance at them kind of peripherally to see, their features. But they looked, at first, if you didn't know better, you would think, oh, they look kind of like gray aliens, but they're not. There's a lot of differences on.
Yeah. Have you had anything materialize, like, in your awake consciousness?
As far as
like visitation or
actually I have. Yeah, actually I have. Yep. I was in a car accident in 2014, so this was 2 years after my cat Piglet was in the car with me. I think we were going to an event. Piglet was she was a registered therapy animal, so she went to a lot of events with me. So she was very well trained. So we got into a car accident, and I kid you not, there was 2 Pleiadian beings that materialized that helped us.
Oh, I believe you. I totally believe you. And I, because I've had experiences like that. Some I can't remember, like vividly remember, like you were talking about the out of body. Some of the out of bodies I can totally remember, and some I can't. They're just like this, I don't know, like an imprint. Like you know it, but you can't really put your finger on it, kind of thing.
Yeah, no, it was weird because the first one came in an unmarked black SUV because I was on the highway,
Is that right?
and she came out of the car, and I thought, oh my God, she's like the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. I mean, and, and she looked kind of like she was dressed kind of preppy, but it wasn't. She was very tall, long blonde hair. You know, looked totally Pleiadian. And she asked me, "Are you both all right?" And I said, "How does she know that there's a cat in my car?" I mean, because you
Yeah.
couldn't see. You know, my cat was in a carrier, so
Yeah.
so I knew right then something was up because
Wow. Wow.
she asked, you know, are you both okay? And I think she came second. The first one that came was in an identical black SUV was a tall Pleiadian man, very tall. He asked me if my car needed help, and I said, well, there's some pieces back there. So he helped me collect the pieces. And he said, are you going to be okay? And I said, yes. And then he went in his car and left. And about 5 minutes later, there was a second SUV that showed up.
Now this isn't full consciousness.
It's in full consciousness, not an out-of-body experience.
Wow, it makes you wonder, because I know we're merging the physical and the non-physical.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, and it makes you wonder at what level that's occurring, and maybe as has been discussed by many people,
Mm-hmm.
depending on your frequency. Like
Yeah.
I could, because I know there's been situations like that, and that I've even been a part of, where somebody's seen something that somebody else isn't. But I've also been in many experiences with Morgan where we're both seeing the same thing. I mean, it's right there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no.
And so that
these beings have the ability to pull their frequency down to be on planet Earth for short periods of time as needed. Because I remember even as a child, I would get in bad situations, and there was always some angelic being that would in a human form, I guess, that would, take me out of danger. This happened several times. I mean, it was so too often to be a coincidence,
Yeah, and I think another thing for that's important to state is the universe, our experience,
Mm-hmm.
the way the universe communicates with us, if you will,
Yeah.
the way we interact with the universe is unique. Is unique to each one of us. So
absolutely,
there is already enough of the programming of, oh, I'm just a small human. And as people start to have these experiences, they'll hear something that happened to you or happened to me or this person or that person, think, oh my God, they're this and I'm not. And I think it's important to state that it may not seem that way. I mean, it may seem that you're inferior, but you're not. We're made up of an infinite number of frequencies, and there's just so many things. For instance, like I know in my case, because I've asked several times, although I've had many divine episodes and so on, apparitions and so on, but I've been told we can only show you so much because of the way you're built. We can't show you any more beyond that because it would kill the whole deal for you. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Your whole experience would be blown. And I think collectively, that's kind of the waters we're treading through now. Like it's like being piecemealed, and because it's going to be a collective recognition, collective awareness aspects of it. Like it's like I wouldn't be surprised at anything that happens at this point.
No, I mean, I've had too many, I think, very strange interdimensional experiences to know that anything is possible. And a lot of times, I think referring back to what you were saying before about people saying, well, why am I not having those experiences? Or why is, maybe I'm not as evolved as that other person. I always tell my clients and other people that we all have access to the records. I don't have any greater abilities than anybody else. It's just like I'm awakened to it. I maybe sooner, but I think as humans, we're all going down that direction. We're all going to having these abilities.
Yeah,
So
I agree. I agree too.
yeah,
And it's a different type of experience too. Like you mentioned something about observing from your peripheral.
yeah,
That seems to be something I know it happens with me, and
hmm
I've heard other people talk about it. Like when something enters your field and there's a certain level of physicality to it, whether it be a shadow or light or
yeah,
something with more definition, it's almost like when you look right at it, you can't see it.
yeah, exactly.
It's
Yeah,
really kind of strange. And I think that's another thing that we're getting used to. Is like, how does that work? How does it work to see past the visible light spectrum? This is now 4 people or 5 people that have mentioned your practice and
hmm
have sessions with you. You know, of course, a lot of people come on here and this is what they do. And I've always been a big believer that whatever we receive is first meant for us. And there's certain people like you, like my wife,
hmm
that are guided and meant to uh, serve people one-on-one or in groups and that type of thing. But we're always open to new things here. Somebody mentioned, why don't you, we haven't done much of any of this, why don't you, I guess, I don't know if she said, do a reading on Todd or something to that effect. And I'm not necessarily asking you to do that. You can do whatever you want. But what I would like to ask you is, how do your sessions work? Like, I've heard a lot of people talk about what they do,
hmm
and a lot of that has changed in the last month, or not month, but in the last 12 months.
yeah, gotcha.
I've noticed a lot of practitioners have said, I used to do this and now I do this. How does a session work with Debbie?
Um, a lot of times clients will reach me because they're starting to have some recollection of, hey, I'm not from here, or I'm starting to have soul memories of this or that, or I think I'm from another system, or I've had some an extraterrestrial abduction experience. So I get people that come to me because they're starting to have similar experiences, okay, or they're starting to awaken on some level, and they feel like, I don't think I'm from here originally,
Yeah,
So a lot of times I do use Linda Howe's uh, pathway prayer. So I use very traditional methods to access the records, just because it gives like a little bit of a ritual or a process. But actually, in reality, I can access their information immediately.
right.
It's not like I have to work hard at it. It's so a client comes to me, we're doing a reading on Zoom or on Skype or some other method, um, a lot of times, I'll get their location, their first or their legal name, so whatever their full legal name is, and their birth date. We always want to use their birth date because we want to make sure that we get the right individual, because there's many people that have similar names. So,
Right.
so I'll just imagine this pillar of light that's connecting me to the higher realms, and
Yeah.
it's immediate now. It's like I don't have to try hard at it, but
Yeah.
so I clear the space, I do the pillar, I connect with the records, and then it just downloads. So I'm seeing like an animation or a movie that's in my third eye. So
Right.
I'm getting messages from their guide. So I get the messages not just visually, but also audibly. Yeah, I mean, it comes in various levels. I see symbols. Sometimes I hear music. Sometimes I feel emotions. That's one thing people don't realize, is that when you go into the records, you feel all the emotions that person is feeling. So it's
Right.
almost like you're kind of piggybacking on their soul memories, which is kind of cool,
Yeah.
So a lot of times I joke to my husband that, I think I spend most of my life in the Akashic Records. I mean, I think that's, I think I spend more time in the records than I do in, in this current reality that we're in. But it kind of comes to me on various different levels, and I start seeing their story, so
Yeah.
I'm starting to see their story. I see, where did they originate from? Did they originate from this galaxy? Did they originate from a different galaxy? I have a few people that originated from a different universe.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah.
So Why are they here? Why did they choose to be here? Because I get a lot of times I would say the most common question besides what's my star lineage is most common question I get is, what's my life purpose? Why am I here? What am I here to do? And I think because people really want to be of service, they want to be aligned with their soul mission.
Do you find that there's, I mean, equal or more value or less value or whatever? I guess what I'm talking about is in terms of the outcome, in terms of the final product. Is it more in line with their direct questions? Because I've heard that too. I've heard from other practitioners that it's almost like going to a fortune teller. Like, who am I going to marry, and what, the real human questions. But there always seems to be another aspect to it, which is kind of like, which intrigues me, which is kind of like, okay, do I have your permission to go in? And yes, they go in. And then it's kind of like a crapshoot. Like, oh, I'm seeing this and I'm seeing that. Almost like you're opening up code or memory in the person, which at a human level may not be sequential, and it may not seem congruent, but there's something about the session that activates, that's what I mean, that activates parts of them that then sends them on their way.
A lot of times the guides, whether it be the Akashic guides or that person's guides, because I get input from the Akashic guides and also from that person's guides, and maybe sometimes from my guides. They show me information that answers the question that the person is thinking about or maybe has had but hasn't asked yet. So a lot of times I'll have clients that tell me, oh, this is something I was thinking about, but I didn't even think to ask it, and a lot of times they'll show me aspects of that client that is something that they need to know that maybe they didn't realize they needed to know.
Yeah.
What I'm saying? Is that kind of what you're getting at too? Or?
Yeah. Like it's not what they thought walking in the door. Exactly. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like they come out going, oh, I know in my case, like, for whatever reason, I guess the way I designed it or whatever, like when I first reawoke, there was a series of psychics and mediums that were in my path. Like they would just come in, and it was similar to what you're talking about. They would come in and they would tell me something. I don't know if it was like training for me or something, but I could translate it, number one, but the more importantly, I could tell they were reading my field.
Yeah.
And what I noticed about it was some of them, not all of them, I would say the less mature ones, or the more attached ones to what they were doing, that weren't balanced and in their body like you, they would say, oh, this is happening or that's happening. Like they're telling me something I don't know. But what I noticed about it was they were always like a week or two off. Like, hey, that just came in my field like a week ago. So then I kind of realized they're able to read my field, which is a gift. But as far as like prophecy, you know what I mean? Like, to me, it always seemed like, okay, some of this information is very good for where I stand here and now. The minute I walk out of this session, everything can change. Like that's a trajectory, not a predestiny. You know what I mean? And I think that's another thing, because what I notice about the practitioner energy that's kind of come to the surface, and I think it's been there, but they've kind of been in the background.
Yeah.
They're all about self-empowerment. And there's not really a long-term relationship structure, because they're giving the tools to the client. Does that resonate with you?
Oh, absolutely. I do Akashic clearings as well, and I don't believe in doing constant re-clearings. To me, it's kind of like a waste of time.
What does that mean, Akashic clearing?
It's when somebody experience some blockages or some patterns where.
Okay.
Yeah,
so you're like clearing the channel. Yeah,
exactly.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Just like in the body, we get blockages, and you can go in. Now, do you? So if somebody walks in the door, do you do like a scan? Like do you just kind of scan their field, or is that done like in the Akashic?
It's a combination of both because I do look at their auric field. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but then their guides are also filling me in with information. So usually with the type of clearings I do, I go through all the different points of clearing with their guides even before I meet them in person. So
Yeah.
I'm already getting an idea of what's
Yeah,
going on.
that makes sense. I do the same with the shows.
Yeah.
So, because Morgan suggested it way back, like 300 or 400 shows into this, and
Yeah.
she's like, you pull up their higher self
Mm-hmm.
and connect there, and it works. You know,
No, I
it's
know
so
it does
it's so
for me.
amazing. Yeah, yeah. I mean, to me, it's so amazing. It's almost like it's right before our eyes. You know, how when you're looking for something, and that
Mhm.
old saying, "It's right before your eyes." It's so amazing to me how what we call the imagination is
Mhm.
such a driver. Somewhere intuition, imagination, like it's all like, and and we discount it.
Yeah.
We discount it, and I think that might be one of the biggest hurdles is trusting that imagination as a creative source, or maybe even the creative source, and at least in this body, as we're physical and non-physical and merging everything. But I think I mean, at least from my point of view,
Mhm.
anyway, or my experience with discussing with people like you, is that yeah, we underestimate that. It's like that's fantasy. Like the imagination is not to be relied on. But really, if I look at what you do, what Morgan does, I mean, maybe that wouldn't fit from a 5D perspective as a proper definition or
Mhm.
explanation, but from a 3D, I can see where and even in my own right, and you and people like you trust that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
They trust that. They trust those things that are happening third eye, 5D, and of course, in the physical plane and all of the above.
No,
Yeah.
a lot of times my clients will come to me and they say, "Oh, I have this impression of this, but I'm not sure if it's real. I don't trust myself." And I say, "Why aren't you trusting yourself? I mean, you have the same
Yeah.
capabilities I have,
Yeah.
and a lot of times they usually, I would say, at least 70% of my clients already have an idea of where they came from or what star system
Yeah.
they're aligned with, but they don't trust themselves, so they're going to somebody like me to give them validation. But occasionally I get some clients that are way off base. I mean, that happens,
Yeah.
but for the
Of
most
course.
part, I
Yeah.
think most of them are on point. But even
Do you,
myself, like when I'm doing a reading, I might get some weird image. Like, it's like I get some weird image of something and I'm thinking, why in the heck is a guide showing me this? Like some
mm,
crazy thing. And then I mention it to the client and the client says, "Oh my God, how did you know about that?" And it's like, your guides just showed me. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's usually some sort of weird random thing. And it's like, but it's very, I guess it was something that the guides wanted that person to know.
yeah.
So if I didn't trust myself, I probably would have dismissed it. I would have said, "Oh, this doesn't follow the storyline, so I'm not going to pay attention to it." But because I've done, thousands of these readings now, I learned that no matter what comes in, I'm going to trust it, because,
Yeah. Yeah. You got to put it out there.
yeah,
It's
exactly.
kind of like our journeys.
Yeah,
That's kind of what's happened to all of us. Is like it keeps coming back into. There's certain everything's fallen away, and
yeah,
what are we left with?
yeah,
And that's you kind of got to that's all you got, but that's all you need, right?
yeah, absolutely.
So before we get out of here, I just want to make sure that you have the floor for a bit. So, is there anything that you want to do? Anything you want to say? Anything you want to talk about in terms of what you're doing? And where can people find you?
Okay,
Just
yeah,
hand the floor over to you, and I'll let you take it.
okay, sure. Um, if I recently did, well, actually, it was taped a few months ago, but and I think most people probably know this, but I recently was interviewed on the Beyond Belief show with George Norrie, on Gaia. So if you are a Gaia subscriber, feel free to check out my show. I think, for the 35 minutes it was a really great show. And if you're not a Gaia subscriber and you want to be, go on my website and go on my Gaia page, and you can connect through my portal, and it helps me to get on more shows. So
Wow, very cool.
yeah.
And what's your website? What's the URL?
My URL is Debbie, DEBBIE, Solaris, SOLARIS.com, just like it sounds. And I'm also on YouTube, so you can find me under Debbie Solaris on YouTube. I'm on Instagram. Not on TikTok yet. Thinking about it, but I'm not quite that hip yet.
I think there's a lot of traffic on TikTok.
Yeah,
I don't know how you,
it's kind of but no, I'm not taking appointments currently because I am booked until May of next year. But I will be opening my calendar again in early 2021. So if you're interested in booking a personal appointment with me, go on my website, sign up on the page, the booking page, and we'll contact you and let you know when we're taking appointments again.
Right on.
Yeah.
Right on. Very cool. Very down to earth. I love talking to people that like yourself who've, because I mean, these experiences that you're talking about, that's another thing we probably should have covered, but we've covered it before, which is it's a very powerful thing. Not only does it make you question yourself, but there's the other side of it where you're like, wow, I'm really special. I mean, like, the angel appeared before me. I must be unique, but you're very grounded, and I can tell you've embodied, at least the lion's share of what you've pulled in. And I think that's a big part of it.
Lessons, in my life, before I was awakened. And I think that was very purposeful to help, build my personality or, my viewpoint. But I don't feel like I'm special. I just feel like I'm a prototype of what's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see that. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Somebody asked me, I was on Michael Mejia's, he's got a show now on our network.
Mm-hmm.
He'll do his third one today, but so I was on his first one, and he said to me, so who is Morgan Lee? Right? Like, what does she mean to you? And I was kind of surprised because my answer, well, first of all, I was already in an emotional state, and I didn't want to go into like, snot running out of my nose, bawling like a baby, talking about how much I loved her on a personal level. But what came out of it was, this is what I see. This is what's coming. This type of person, like what you're talking about, is a prototype of what's coming.
Yeah. And
it's interesting because it's such a mix between the human and the galactic. It's like almost like emotion and operation. I mean, not that the galactics don't have emotion, because anyone that's ever interacted with Arcturians and their level of love is just like mind blowing. But you know what I mean? So I get what you're saying. And I think there's a lot more of you out there than we think.
No, I think there's a lot of people out there that are like me. I mean, I think we're all one. We're just all expressions of source. We're all here to help with the Earth ascension process, to help reconnect Earth to being part of the greater galactic family, which is, why we're here.
Right on.
We're here to align Earth with this direction.
We can talk about a lot of things for a long time.
I think you and I can have conversations for hours. But
we'll have to do this again. Now, are you still in the Denver area?
I am still just south of Denver. I'm in Castle Rock. Still in the Denver area.
And who was? And I'm asking this for personal reasons. Who was the person you were talking about that you took the courses from? Do you or initials? I'm trying to figure out if it's somebody I know over there.
Yeah, no, her name is Olivia.
Okay, that's not her.
Yeah, no,
it's not the one I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Very cool. So we could talk about a lot of things. I mean, like even being in a partnership and a marriage, is all this stuff is happening to you, and what all the different dynamics that brings in.
There's so many levels that we can talk about with the Akashic Records that it'll be like layers and layers, maybe many shows we can do about different because I get a lot of questions about soul contracts and twin
Yeah.
flames and all that stuff too.
Right on.
So
Very cool. Well, it's been a pleasure getting to know you. I look forward to many, many, many more collaborations, and I wish you and your partner and all your loved ones all blessings. And
thank you very much. Thank you for having me on the show. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
absolutely. You take care.
And thank you
Peace
for
out.
everybody. Yeah. Goodbye.